What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Off the Schneid. Today, we're going to be doing some draft prep. We're going to be breaking down all 16 AFC teams, looking at their draft needs, their picks, subtractions, additions, everything to get you prepared for next week's NFL draft. First up, we got the Buffalo Bills. This team is very complete in my opinion. Running back might be their only small hole. They do have Devin Singletary there, who, in my opinion, is a very good complementary back. I don't see him being a workhorse, pound it between the tackles type of a guy. Someone that I think that they could look to draft next week would be A.J. Dillon from Boston College. I don't know if they're going to use pick 54. It might be a bit of a reach, but if they like him that much, hey, go out and grab him and complete your team. Defensive line, very complete. They have about 7 guys that they can rotate that would all be effective. Linebackers are okay. I really like Tremaine Edmonds there. Their corners, Tre'Davious White, one of the best in the league. Josh Norman, they picked up in free agency, and their safeties are just fine. Another small hole might be in their interior line at guard. It is a pretty deep draft, so they could look to add one of those guard center guys and just kind of move them around and plug them where you need to fill a hole or if injuries occur. Stephon Diggs, great pickup. I don't think they're going to need to look at wide receiver. They might look at a guy in the later round, 6th, 7th round, just kind of a roster player, depth player type of a thing. But I personally see the Buffalo Bills just running away with the AFC East this year. The Miami Dolphins have been one of the more active teams in free agency. They added a lot of former Patriots and Buffalo Bills. It's no surprise with the coaching staff there. There's still quite a few holes on that team. If they do look to draft Tua, they're really going to have to shore up the right side of that line because as of right now, it is pretty awful. I do like their wide receivers. I do like Mike Gesicki at tight end. Jordan Howard, I think, was a great pickup, but they might look to add another running back in the draft. They've got a bevy of picks. They may look to move up or down quite a few times in the draft, not only in the first round, but in the later rounds as well. Rashad Jones is a pretty big loss for them. Their safeties definitely need addressing as well. We'll see what happens, but I definitely think the Miami Dolphins take a step forward and win way more games this season. I don't see them competing for the division or the playoffs, to be honest, but they're definitely moving in the right direction. Going to be very interesting to see where the Patriots go post Tom Brady era. If they like Jarrett Stidham enough, which most people think they do, and I think they like him enough to give him a shot. They do have a ton of draft picks. They could very easily move up in the draft and go after a guy like Jordan Love, or if they really like Jacob Eason, they might take him early. They could move up if Tua starts slipping or Herbert starts slipping. One of those guys, they could move up in the draft and scoop up their quarterback of the future, but that's going to depend on how much they like Jarrett Stidham. They did lose a couple of quality linebackers, and I think that might be an issue for them. I see quite a few holes on this team, if I'm going to be honest. Their secondary I do like, but their defensive line linebackers, I see quite a few holes there. It remains to be seen how these wide receivers are going to respond to Jarrett Stidham. Running backs, they should be okay with Sony Michel and James White there. Their offensive line is still okay, but I think Belichick's going to have to work some magic if we see the Patriots making another postseason push. The Jets won more games in 2019 than I thought they were going to win, but I see them finishing 2020 around the same place they finished in 2019, kind of middle of the pack, between 6-10 and 9-7 type of a team. Their offense is still good enough to compete. I really like Jamison Crowder. They picked up Rashad Perriman, who finished last year really strong with the Bucs, but we'll see how he fits in there. They addressed the offensive line in free agency, adding a couple pieces. I don't see them using a premier pick in the draft on offensive line. We'll see what happens. They have the ammo that they can move up or down in the draft depending on who they like and where they see a need or a fit. Lev Bell, we'll see how he plays this year. I'm not sure he's extremely happy to be in New York, to be honest with you, but we'll see how this season unfolds for him. I shouldn't have defensive end as a need for them. It's actually probably the strongest part of their defense, but what they really need is a 3-4 outside linebacker that's going to get at the quarterback and be a disruptive force for them. It sounds like Jamal Adams is probably going to hold out, which is really going to hurt their secondary considering their cornerbacks are not in a good spot. I see them definitely addressing that in the draft as well. The Jets are going to have a tough time winning games if they can't stop teams on defense. The Baltimore Ravens were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Obviously, it starts with Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, who I could see taking another step forward and being even better this year, believe it or not. Their offensive line is okay. They've got a couple really good tackles, but I see them addressing the interior line in the draft. Hollywood Brown on the outside, and a very underrated receiver who I see taking a step forward this year is Miles Boykin. They traded away Hayden Hurst, but Mark Andrews is the guy there, and they still have Boyle to help block. Mark Ingram, Gus Bus running between the tackles, and Justice Hill complementing them. I see this offense potentially being even better in 2020. On defense, I missed Calais Campbell. He was traded from the Jags. Him and Derek Wolfe should more than fill in for the loss of Michael Pierce. The only real need, they have one of the best secondaries in the NFL, but the only real need is maybe an outside linebacker to help Jalen Ferguson get to the quarterback. But you can bet on the Baltimore Ravens being a Super Bowl contender in 2020. You can call me a homer, but the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a tough football team this year. It starts on defense with all of their free agent acquisitions. I don't see any holes on this defense, and I could see this unit becoming a top 5 team. On offense, clearly we're drafting Joe Burrow, and with the return of AJ Green, hopefully John Ross can stay healthy. Tyler Boyd in the slot, that's pretty dangerous if you ask me. Offensive line has always been a bit of an issue, but with the return of Jonah Williams, and if a couple guys can take a step forward, they should be just fine. My only concern is if Joe Mixon decides to hold out. Barring that, this team is going to surprise some people in 2020. Just like last season, the Cleveland Browns have a pretty good team and a pretty complete roster. They definitely need to add a tackle. They signed Jack Conklin, which is huge, and I see them moving him to the left side, drafting a rookie to shore up that right tackle spot. If they decide to move on from Beckham, they're going to need an outside receiver, but with Jarvis Landry in the slot, having Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb, I think that they're going to be just fine offensively. They got enough weapons. On defense, they're pretty complete. The only hole, in my opinion, is going to be at linebacker, which again, they could definitely address in this year's draft. After the draft, I think the Browns could have a pretty good roster on their hands, and the AFC is going to be very, very, very competitive to make the playoffs this year, with a lot of teams improving. The Bengals, the Browns, the Dolphins, all these teams are improving. So we'll see what happens, but the Browns could definitely make a playoff push in 2020. Steelers fans are going to hate me for saying this, but I see them regressing in 2020. They're very good defensively, but losing Javon Hargrave is going to hurt that defensive line. They don't have a ton of draft capital, and we're not sure how Ben Roethlisberger is going to respond after offseason surgery. That, plus we're not sure who their running back is going to be. James Conner is always hurt. Jalen Samuels is more of a complimentary guy. Maybe that's Benny Snell, but I see them addressing running back in the draft. We'll see what happens, but with all these other teams progressing in the AFC, I see the Steelers taking a step back. Call me crazy, but I don't see a huge regression coming for the Houston Texans. Clearly, there's a disagreement between Nuke Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, and they decided to move on. They went out and signed Randall Cobb and made a trade for Brandon Cooks to shore up their wide receivers. If David Johnson can get back to even his 2018 form, they should be just fine on offense. Defensively, they're not going to lose them any games, but they're sure not going to bail them out anytime soon. I expect them to use their minimal draft capital to help out JJ Watt on that defensive line. The Texans should compete for the AFC South once again in 2020. The Colts made a splash in the offseason, signing Phillip Rivers to a one-year deal and trading their first-round pick to the 49ers for DeForest Buckner. The Colts have a very good offensive line, with the exception of right guard, and a very good running game, but we're going to need to see wide receiver Paris Campbell take another step forward in his second season. They have good pieces on defense, but they have a lot of holes that they hope to shore up in the draft. We'll see, but I don't see the Colts making a push for the AFC South this season. I might catch some heat for this, but the Jacksonville Jaguars look like a pretty good team to me. Their offense is in good shape. They have some playmakers at wide receiver, including D.D. Westbrook and DJ Chark. They went out and signed my guy, Tyler Eifert, to pair with Josh Oliver. They got Leonard Fournette, Minshew Mania. The offensive line is pretty solid if you ask me. Defense looks okay. The defensive line needs a little bit of help after trading Calais Campbell as well as corner. But other than that, I actually see them making some moves and winning some games in 2020. We'll see, but I think that they can make a push with the Texans as well as the Titans in the AFC South. Last year, the Tennessee Titans were everyone's favorite underdog. They went out and they retained Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. They've got a very good young wide receiver in A.J. Brown, and Jonnu Smith should fill in for Delaney Walker just fine. My biggest concerns for the Titans come in their losses on defense, as well as Jack Conklin off that offensive line. They will look to shore it up in the draft, but I could actually see the Titans taking a step back in 2020 and falling below the Jaguars and the Texans. Winners of 4 of their last 5 games, I expect the Denver Broncos to take a step forward in 2020. With young playmakers Phillip Lindsay, Noah Fant, and Courtland Sutton, with the arrival of Melvin Gordon, that gives Drew Lock plenty of options on offense. Defensively, they have 2 of the best pass rushers in the game, Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. They lost Chris Harris, but with the addition of AJ Bouye, I could see the Denver Broncos making a playoff push come season's end. The Chiefs brought back everyone on their Super Bowl winning offense. They have the number 1 quarterback in the game, Patrick Mahomes, and the best wide receiver tight end combo in the game. On defense, they used their franchise tag on Chris Jones and brought back Super Bowl star Bashaud Breeland. They'll use the draft to shore up a couple holes on their offensive line, but the Chiefs are a good bet to repeat as Super Bowl champs. Mike Mayock has done a fantastic job building the newly minted Las Vegas Raiders. They only got better in the offseason, and if they can use their quality picks in next week's draft to add a playmaker on offense and a playmaker on defense, the Raiders are my favorite dark horse pick to be a division winner by the end of 2020. The LA Chargers officially moved on from Phillip Rivers, so whether it's Tyrod Taylor or someone they get in next week's draft, we're going to see a new quarterback in LA. They addressed the offensive line in free agency and only improved on their top 5 defense. As of now, the LA Chargers are a complete wildcard in the AFC West as well as the playoff picture heading into 2020. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. And if you like what you saw, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share, anything to get this channel out there. I really appreciate it. Look forward to some more content coming at you shortly.